welcome back to our channel. You won't believe the story behind this unassuming little piece of change sitting in your pocket. The 1978 Washington quarter has more twists than a thriller novel. Today, we're zeroing in on why collectors and casual holders alike suddenly spotting treasure are in what once looked like everyday pocket change. By the end of this first segment, you'll be looking at that silvery disc in a whole new light. Let's travel back almost half a century. It's early 1978, and the Washington quarter, designed a generation earlier to commemorate our first president's bicentennial, is settling into its new role as everyday money. But lurking beneath the standard Liberty and Eagle motif, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new die materials and planchet formulations. That year saw subtle shifts in how the coin was struck, differences that, at the time, went largely unnoticed by the public but set the stage for today's rare varieties. From the moment you pick up a 1978 quarter, your eyes dart to those blades of wheat and the fine detail in Washington's hair. Key identifying features include the crispness of the hairlines on George's head and the sharpness of the eagle's feathers. In Mint State examples, you'll see deep, mirror-like fields where the planchet reflects light almost like a calm lake at dawn. But some coins display a softer strike, with slightly blurred details around the date, or even faint doubling on the reverse lettering, tiny clues that peer collectors know to watch for. Now, what really makes these coins rare? First, a handful of 1978 quarters were struck on old dies originally intended for the bicentennial issues. Those old dies show a distinct rim thickness and slightly different spacing between United States of America and the Eagle. Only a few thousand of these hybrids slipped out before the Mint caught on. Next, there's the famous, clipped planchet errors, pieces of the metal blank that were accidentally sheared off before striking. In a Mint state, these errors look like a little bite has been taken out of the coin, but ironically, they're highly prized. Scarcity multiplied by eye appeal equals collector gold. As for current market value, it depends dramatically on condition and variety. A typical circulated 1,978 quarter trades hands for face value plus a modest premium, usually between 25 cents and $1. But snag a Mint State example, say MS65 or above, and you're looking at $15 to $30 at auction. The true jackpot, though, is those hybrid die quarters and clipped planchets. In the past year, auction houses have seen hybrid examples fetch between $200 and $350, with top-grade specimens occasionally nudging $500 when the grading pedigree is rock solid. Clipped planchets in high grade have achieved similar figures, sometimes even breaking the $600 mark when the clip is particularly dramatic and the strike bold. Beyond the numbers, every 1978 quarter tells a story. One collector, a retired schoolteacher, discovered a clipped planchet in his change jar and sold it online for enough money to fund his granddaughter's college fund. Another rare hunter recounts stumbling across a hybrid die piece at a coin show in Raleigh. It was almost kicked under the table by someone who thought it was a ho-hum bicentennial design. These real-life moments give weight to otherwise small metal discs, reminding us that history lives on the edges and imperfections of everyday objects. Condition plays an outsized role in value. A sharp MS67 example, one that defies the ravages of time and circulation, can command upwards of $1,000 if it shows perfect luster with no contact marks. Conversely, a quarter with a single scratch or hairline can see its value drop by half or more. Collectors often talk about eye appeal above all else, that magical combination of strike, luster, and absence of distractions. Two MS65 coins might both grade the same on paper, but one could sell for twice as much simply because it gleams more brilliantly under the lamp. Here's where you might pause and look at your own loose change differently. That 1978 quarter in your ashtray or coin jar could be an unrecognized treasure. Take note of the mint mark. Philadelphia pieces bear no mint mark, Denver issues carry a D beneath the wreath, and San Francisco proofs from that year have an S. Proof coins, struck on specially prepared planchets with deeply mirrored fields, rarely saw circulation, so even proofs with minor hairlines are surprisingly valuable, often $20 to $50 for lower grades, and several hundred for pristine examples. Finally, let's not overlook the human side of collecting. There's a certain thrill in inspecting a roll of quarters, fingers tingling at the thought that 1 in 100 might be an anomaly. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist or someone who simply likes the idea of hidden worth in your pocket, that quest ties us all together. Every time you spot the glint of metal at the bottom of a tumbler, you're threading your own story into a narrative that stretches back decades. So next time you unwrap a handful of quarters, give them more than a passing glance. Slide one under a bright lamp, examine the way light dances off the fields, and feel that electric tension, because tucked inside that modest 1978 Washington quarter could be a tale worth telling, an investment waiting to be realized, or simply a piece of history that slipped through the cracks. And that's just the beginning of today's journey through rare and valuable coins. Stay tuned, because up next we're diving into the quirks and treasures of the 1982 Washington quarter. The 1982 Washington quarter might look like the same familiar face of our first president, but peel back the years and you'll find a world of numismatic intrigue hiding in its silvery shine. By the time George Washington's profile appeared on quarters for the 7th year, the U.S. Mint had quietly refined its processes, and in doing so, created a playground of subtle errors and prized specimens that collectors still hunt for today. Let's explore why this ordinary-looking coin has become anything but ordinary. In early 1982, the nation was easing into Ronald Reagan's first term, gas prices had begun to ease, and the mint was transitioning to a new generation of automatic coin presses. That meant slight changes to planchet annealing temperatures and die hardenings, all in pursuit of higher throughput. The result? Slightly different metal flow on the planchets and tiny variances in hub impressions. Though most quarters rolled into general circulation without fanfare, a small number revealed startling quirks once they landed in collecting trays. Pick up a 1982 quarter under a bright light, and you'll notice the delicate layering of copper sandwiched between outer cupronickel, classic clad construction. But in certain error coins, that layering exposed itself in unexpected ways. On off-center strikes, the metal flow shifts unevenly, sometimes revealing a slender copper ring where the outer layer didn't fully cover the blank. That thin, fiery flash of copper on the edge instantly signals clutch-worthy rarity, and savvy collectors pay premiums for coins with a band of exposed copper. Then there are the double die obverse, DDO, where the hub's slight misalignment creates ghostly echoes of Washington's features or the date digits. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1982 PDDO on the obverse date, where an extra, faint 1 or 9 can be seen shadowing the main numerals. Only a few hundred made it into circulation before the die was retired, and those errors routinely command three-figure sums at auction when graded MS64 or higher. You won't find broad strikes every day, but when the collar fails to close properly, a planchet expands beyond the die's intended diameter. On a broad-struck 1982 quarter, the rims flatten out dramatically, creating a dish-like effect and sometimes leaving part of the legend incomplete. These look like rolling pin impressions on the edges, and examples graded AU58 or MS60 have sold for $75 to $150, depending on how pronounced the broadstrike is. Typical specimens tell a quieter story. A well-worn 1982 quarter will simply change hands at face value, or perhaps 25 cents to 50 cents in a dealer's book. But uncirculated pieces, especially from the Philadelphia Mint, plain P mint mark absence, and Denver Mint, D beneath the wreath, carry modest premiums. At the MS63 level you'll see $3 to $5, while MS65 tops out around $8 to $12. Collectors chasing perfection often target MS67 and above, where sharp strikes and full, original luster can push values into the $25 to $40 range. Proof enthusiasts have their own corner of the market. Although the San Francisco Mint's 1982 S-proofs were primarily for sets and seldom mingled with pocket change, loose proof quarters surface occasionally. In lower grades these sell for $8 to $15, but a rare, flawless PF70 Ultra Cameo proof, black fields offset by frosted devices, can fetch $100 or more when a top-tier grading company vouches for its cameo contrast. Beyond errors and grades, the stories attached to individual coins breathe life into metal discs. One collector recalls turning over an off-center 1982 quarter to reveal just enough copper to catch his eye. He snapped a quick photo with his phone, posted it to an online forum, and watched bids climb to $180 within days. Another remembers unearthing a DDO in a bank-wrapped roll, then trading it at a local coin shop for a Morgan dollar in pristine condition, a swap that jump-started his love affair with 19th century silver coins. Keep an eye out for clipped planchets, too. Whether the clip is straight, curved, or elliptical, any missing wedge of metal is guaranteed to excite graders and bidders. In grades above EF40, clipped 1982 quarters can fetch $60 to $120, depending on the clip size and location. Around half the planchet missing along the rim is extremely rare and has pushed sale prices above $250 when landing in a pristine slab. Auction records underscore the fascination with this issue. In 2024, an MS67 Plus 1982p DDO sold for $520, illustrating how a well-documented variety with solid eye appeal can outshine even older classics. That same summer, a broad-struck quarter-graded MS64 brought $175, and a deep copper exposure off-center piece hit $225 in an online session. These numbers remind us that modern quarters can hold compelling value if we know where, and how, to look. Condition remains king. Two quarters both graded MS65 can sell at vastly different price points depending on contrast and contact marks. A coin with frosty luster and razor-sharp devices often doubles the value of a counterpart marred by hairlines or scuffs. Collector forums buzz with debates about MPQ, most pleasing quality, a term referring to coins that deliver an extra spark under magnification, beyond their numerical grade. Even the most methodical collectors experience serendipity. Rolling coins through a handheld magnifier, sorting by date and mint mark, then pausing at each gleam of potential error, this tactile ritual is part of the allure. And because the 1982 quarter resides at the crossroads of mass production and modern minting techniques, it offers both fertile ground for spotting mistakes and an accessible entry point for new collectors who want to graduate from face value finding to higher grade quests. If you're sifting through piggy banks, pocket change, or coin show boxes, remember that this seemingly pedestrian year holds surprises. A tiny double line on the 19 of the date, a whisper of copper at the rim, or a nearly complete broadstrike can transform a 25-cent piece into a collector's jackpot. And unlike older silver coins that carry intrinsic metal value, these clad quarters live and die by the stories etched into their surfaces, stories you can uncover with every careful inspection. So when your next handful of quarters lands on the counter, don't slide past 1982 without a closer look. Run your fingernail along the edge for copper flashes, tilt the coin to catch doubled images, and let your curiosity guide you. Each quarter has a backstory encoded in metal, and the 1982 Washington quarter might just reward your patience with a glimpse of something truly rare. Up next, we'll uncover the secrets of the 1998 Washington quarter, another chapter in our journey through modern numismatic marvels. And just like that, we arrive at the tail end of an era. The 1998 Washington quarter might seem identical to the ones jingling in your pocket, but as the last year before the state quarters program kicked off, it occupies a special place in collectors' hearts. In this installment, we'll peel back the layers of that familiar face of Washington one more time, and you'll discover why this ordinary quarter suddenly feels like the end of a chapter you don't want to miss. In the late 90s, the U.S. economy was booming, and the Mint was gearing up for its most ambitious program ever, 50 state designs, one per quarter, to commemorate America's diversity. But before that creative avalanche began in 1999, 1998 stood alone as the final year of the classic eagle on the reverse design. This makes every 1998 quarter the last of its kind in a uniform series that started in 1932. That sense of closure gives the year a subtle cachet among seasoned collectors who grew up with the original design. When you pick up a 1998 quarter, you'll immediately notice the crispness of Washington's portrait, flanked by "Liberty" above and the motto, "In God We Trust," just to his left. On the reverse, the bald eagle perches on a bundle of arrows wrapped in olive branches. But look closer under a loupe, and you'll spot the faint die cracks that only appear under magnification. These hairline fissures often radiate from the rim into the fields, creating a web-like pattern that some collectors prize as a road map variety. Though the cracks don't harm the coin's structural integrity, they add a layer of uniqueness to each specimen. Another subtle gem of 1998 quarters is the rare double die reverse, DDR, where the eagle's wing feathers or the lettering show a faint, ghostly second impression. The 1998 DDR is especially sought after. Just a few hundred pieces escaped the Denver Mint before the die was replaced. When slab surface graded MS64 or higher, they routinely fetch between $150 and $250, simply because sightings of this variety are so few and far between. Proof aficionados turn their attention to the San Francisco minted PF69 and PF70 Ultra Cameo examples, struck on polished planchets that gleam like mirrors. These proofs feature deeply frosted devices against pitch-black fields, an effect that looks like tiny portraits carved in ice. Even a PF67 proof, considered low-grade by proof standards, can sell for $25 to $35. But once you hit PF70 Ultra Cameo, where every hair in Washington's portrait stands out like fresh snowfall, values jump to $300 and beyond when backed by a top-tier grading company. Most 1998 quarters you'll encounter are clad pieces from Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D, under the wreath. In average circulated condition, they trade at face value or perhaps 25 cents to 50 cents at coin shops. Yet, uncirculated examples, MS60 through MS62, start showing modest premiums of $2 to $4. Move up to MS63 and you're looking at $5 to $8. At MS65, values hover between $15 and $20. The real sweet spot is MS67. In this grade, a sharp strike, pristine luster, and no visible contact marks can push prices into the $50 to $75 range. Even everyday collectors find surprises in condition-based variations. On some circulated coins, you might discover partial rainbow toning, a thin patina of blues, purples, and golds, that develops when copper in the core reacts to humidity and airborne chemicals. A modestly toned example graded AU58 can command $10 to $15 simply for its eye-catching color play. Conversely, when toning appears as unattractive speckles or streaks, it can actually suppress a coin's value by 20 to 30% compared to an otherwise identical specimen. If you chase errors, keep an eye out for clipped planchets and laminations, cases where part of the copper core or outer layer flakes away. A straight edge clip affecting less than 10% of the rim in EF40 condition might sell for $30 to $50. But when you find a donut lamination error, where a ring of the outer layer peels off in a perfect circle, values can soar past $100, especially if the coin shows no other damage. Stories from the trenches of collecting add depth to these numbers. One hobbyist recounts buying a roll of 1998 D quarters at a local bank, then finding 2 DDR specimens in that single roll, enough to pay for an entire graded set of Buffalo nickels from the 1930s. Another collector tells of spotting a PF70 Ultra Cameo proof at a regional show, tucked inside a beaten-up folder for $40. He flipped it on an auction site for over $350 just weeks later. The auction records back up these personal anecdotes. In 2024, an MS68 1998 P quarter with flawless fields and a razor-sharp strike sold for $180, setting a new high-water mark. That same season, a PF70 DCAM proof commanded $420 in an online session, underscoring how limited mintages and superlative eye appeal can amplify demand even for modern issues. For everyday collectors, the lesson is clear. 1,998 Washington quarters offer accessible entry points, face value and modest uncirculated premiums, while hiding pockets of rarity in error varieties, proofs, and condition-driven nuances. With a little patience, you can turn a routine swap at the supermarket into a quiet victory at your next grading submission. So next time you're shifting through dashboard change or sorting bank rolls, give 1998 an extra glance. Peek under magnification for die cracks, listen for that faint copper rattle if you suspect a clip, and appreciate that final flourish of the classic eagle reverse. Because in that last uniform run, the end of one series marked the start of an entirely new adventure, one where every state would get its moment in the sun. And that makes the humble 1998 quarter a bridge between numismatic eras, a small disc carrying a big story. Up next, we'll flip over to the 2008 New Mexico Value and Errors quarter, where mistakes became masterpieces in their own right. Sliding from a uniform classic into a vibrant burst of southwestern spirit, the 2008 New Mexico quarter carries both a vivid design and a trove of little surprises that collectors prize. Signed into circulation on February 12, 2008, this coin marks the fourth release in the state quarters program, and its distinctive Zia sun symbol framed by graceful yucca blooms immediately set it apart on the belt of change. Yet beyond its eye-catching artwork lies a world of rarity, value swings, and fascinating quirks that elevate it far above mere pocket change. Underneath that radiant sunburst and erupting bloom, you'll find the words, Land of Enchantment, a nod to New Mexico's enduring nickname. The reverse design, created by United States Mint artist Donna Weaver, captures the state flower and the cherished Zia emblem, an ancient symbol representing life, love, health, and happiness. Look closely and you'll notice fine stippling in the background, giving the fields a subtle textured glow. But as in previous years, hidden among the millions of standard strikes are missteps in striking pressure, planchet alignment, and die polishing that transform ordinary pieces into sought-after rarities. Key error varieties begin with off-center strikes. Collectors chase New Mexico quarters struck as little as 2% to 3% off-center, where part of the leaf or sunburst gets sliced away, revealing a crescent-shaped blank margin. On a perfectly toned example, the missing design makes the remaining artwork pop even more dramatically against the silver-gray fields. These off-center pieces, graded EF45 or AU50, often trade between $50 and $100 at auction, depending on how much of the motif was clipped. A subtler but equally intriguing variety is the double die reverse, DDR. In rare batches from the Philadelphia Mint, keen eyes can spot a ghost image doubling on the tips of the sun rays or the lettering of New Mexico. Only a few hundred of these slipped through inspection, and the finest DDRs graded MS65 once fetched over $300 at specialist sales. More modestly doubled examples, graded MS63, still command $75 to $125, proof that faint echoes can echo loudly in collector circles. Planchet laminations add another chapter to the error story. Around mid-2008, fluctuations in metal purity led to occasional flaking of the outer cupronickel layer, exposing the reddish copper core in thin patches or streaks. Depending on the size and location of these lamination errors, coins can range from $25 for small, edge-running flakes up to $150 for dramatic, multi-toned revelations. A few dramatic cases, where copper peels in ribbon-like curls across the face, have exceeded $200 when knocked into auction by passionate bidders. Of course, purely standard specimens also play a role in gauging worth. In circulated grades, New Mexico quarters typically sell at face value or for a modest premium, 25 cents to 50 cents, reflecting their abundance. Yet MS60 uncirculated pieces bring $2 to $3, while MS63 can fetch $5 to $7. Collectors seeking that perfect specimen often target MS67 or MS68. In these lofty mint state tiers, the textured background pops against frosty devices, nudging values into the $20 to $35 range. Proof collectors turn their eyes to the 2008's issues. Loose PF69 proofs trade around $10, while PF70 Ultra Cameo examples, with deep mirror fields and razor-sharp details, routinely exceed $75 in certified form. Beyond numbers and grades, each quarter tells a human tale. One dealer recalls a widow who sent in a handful of New Mexico coins plucked from her late husband's collection. Among them was an off-center example that sold for $120, funding part of her garden renovation. In another corner of the hobby, a young collector discovered a laminated quarter hidden within a roll bought at face value, a lucky find that inspired her first-tiered submission to a grading service. Condition and eye appeal remain the lodestars of value. Two MS65 coins may list at the same grade, but one's full, even luster, with no distracting hairlines or spots, can double the price of a counterpart marred by minor abrasions. Many collectors swear by full cartwheel luster, the way light spirals off the fields like rolling spokes on a wheel, as a secret sauce that elevates a coin's desirability beyond its technical grade. Auction records underscore the New Mexico quarter's allure. In late 2024, an MS68 specimen with razor-crisp Zia rays and deep mirror fields sold for $380, setting a new high-water mark for the series. That same session saw a DDR in MS66 reach $425, underlining how rarity and condition interplay to create collector magic. Meanwhile, a dramatic lamination error in AU53 coaxed a final hammer price of $220 after spirited bidding from an online community. As with prior coins, the chase matters just as much as the prize. Sorting through pocket change, rolling coins through a magnifier, and pausing at each glint of misalignment or lamination is both ritual and thrill. That tactile, deliberate hunt, paired with the hope of unearthing something truly distinct, anchors the hobby in human experience, turning metal into memory. So when your next handful of quarters jingles onto the counter, slow down at any New Mexico piece. Tilt it under a light, peek at those sun rays for ghostly doubling, listen for a faint copper rattle, and let your eyes dance across the stippled fields. Whether you land a high-grade standard strike or a rare error, you'll be holding more than currency, you'll be holding a miniature snapshot of history, art, and possibility. Pulling all four of these quarters together, from the hidden hybrids of 1978 through the modern marvels of 2008, reveals a single, unifying truth: value in numismatics isn't just about age or silver content. It lives in the quirks, the stories, and the human connections woven into every rim and field. So, as you handle your collection, or sift change in your pocket, remember that every quarter is an invitation to explore deeper, to ask questions, and to celebrate the unexpected. And with that, our journey ends, but your next discovery may be just a roll of quarters away.